Mr. Raymond Torres, VIP and celebrity chauffeur, life after serving 235 in federal prison. How you doing, Raymond?
Good, Rico. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you inviting me on your show.
I've been wanting to invite you, but you have a very busy schedule with high-end clients and the life in Vegas and your latest book, right?
That's correct. That's autobiography, the
The
chauffeur.
autobiography of Raymond Torres. Raymond, you served 235 months in federal prison. What did that do to your mental health?
I think you know, going through
How
that.
old were you when you
I
got
was
arrested?
when I got arrested. I was 26 years old. But to answer the question, it's a roller coaster ride of emotions when you are sentenced to 235 months in prison, and there's all types of things go through your mind. There's stages where you're strong. There's stages where you're weak. There's stages where you just want to, just give up.
Yeah.
But for me, my faith, really kept me going, and I think that was the biggest part of what got me through that time in prison. So, and the state of mind, how it affects you. I think it actually made me a stronger person, and it made me um, to depend on on God versus depending on myself, depending on my own feelings, depending on how I feel. Just depending on God's promises is really what brought me through all that.
Take us back when you're 26 years old, you get arrested. We're going to talk about the charges in a few minutes. But the main premise of this video is that there is life after prison, that there is hope where you can make a very good living if you choose to, right? But many people don't understand how a man or a woman in their mid 20s facing so much time away from their family, away from their kids. So you were 26. How many children did you have at the time?
When I was arrested, I had my son Ray Jr., the oldest. I had Alexis, and then I had Serena. So I had two daughters and a son when I got arrested.
Were you thinking about your children when you got arrested, or were you thinking about how to survive 235 months in prison?
You know what? All that goes through your mind when you're looking. I was 26 years old when I got arrested. So when you're looking at that much time, of course you think about your kids. My kids used to come to visit me, and there was times where I remember, my son, he came to visit me at MDCA Los Angeles, and we were in the visiting room. It was time to go, and he didn't want to go. He wanted to come with me, and I'm telling him like, I can't. You can't. Or he was like, well, come home with us, and I couldn't. So I think those are the hardest parts, hardest times remembering. And they tell you that when you're in the game, when you're selling drugs, when you're involved in criminal activity, that what, it's a man stands up and not snitches, and takes it on the chin and does his time, and stays quiet. But honestly, I didn't feel like a man. I felt like I betrayed, because you're going to either betray the people that you're around as far as criminal activity, or you're going to betray your family. And for me, I betrayed my family. They also did time with me because
Yeah.
I wasn't there for them. I wasn't there to raise my kids. I wasn't there. They didn't have a father to be there for them. So in a sense, I betrayed them over the bad choices I made, the people that I chose to hang around, and that's something that I had to live with.
Now those people that you said that you chose to hang around with, Were they also part of your case?
You know, I can't. On a side note, I can't blame anybody else for my actions. Um, there was a few people that were on my case, but I got to blame myself
Right.
because nobody forced me to do anything. Nobody forced me to make the decision to get involved in criminal activity. I was doing this before any of these people got involved, so I have to take the responsibility. Uh, but of course, when you get indicted, the feds want to know everybody around you. They want to know who you're associated with. They want to know this and that, and you know they offer that to anybody that gets incarcerated so they can get their time knocked off. Okay, so that was basically telling. If you choose to stand your ground, then of course you're going to do your time.
235 months in prison. How many prisons did you? Because I know you were transferred. You were transferred because I was looking at your book. I'm still not done reading it, but one of the things that really impressed me. I mean, they're not bragging rights, obviously, because nobody wants to be in prison. Doesn't matter what happens, right?
Mm.
But I saw a picture here in the book that your friends picked you up in a private charter plane.
People don't understand how the feds work, which is kind of surprising. So I started off at a medium high, which was FCI Phoenix.
Uh
Uh,
huh.
I got arrested. They took me to Metropolitan Detention Center. Went through San Bernardino after I got sentenced. I went through FCI Phoenix, and there, if you are programming and you work your way down to a minimum. So, of course, from FCI Phoenix, I went to Safford, Arizona, and then from Safford, Arizona, I worked my way down to a camp. I went to Atwater, and then from Atwater, I went to Nellis. So the surprising thing to me is, which is crazy. I mean, how they allow inmates to do this. But if you have 10 years or less and you're a nonviolent offender, they will give you a furlough transfer where your family pays for everything, so it doesn't come out of their budget to transport you from point A to point B. They might give you 16 hours. So they gave me 16-hour driving time. And so I arranged to have a plane to take me to Vegas so I can have more time with my family. So that's what took place.
And on a side note to that, you're behind bars doing federal time,
Mhm.
and you arrange your own private jet to transport you, and now you arrange transportation for your high-end clients. I think transportation is in your blood.
You know what? So it's funny that you said that because I have a concierge company, which is LV VIP Concierge, and
Right.
in a concierge company we cater to just about everybody's needs in Vegas, whether it's getting tickets, whether it's transportation, whether it's security. Um, Before that, when I was working with the bosses from Mexico, Sinaloa, Mexico, they would come to Vegas. So even back then, I was providing concierge services. They wanted tickets, ringside tickets to the fights. They wanted company. They wanted this. They wanted that, and I provided it for them even back then. So, not really knowing that I would have a business like this in the future, I'm still doing it. Of course, the
Mm.
legal way now.
Right, because back then, everybody that ends up in federal prison was in some sort of transportation business, right?
Well, they're transporting something, most likely, yes. It
Yeah,
might not,
and then
it might not have been people.
it could have been a controlled substance.
Absolutely, most people.
So you said that, okay, 235 months in federal prison, and you said that the federal government allows you to furlough if you have 10 years or less on your sentence, to furlough your transportation on your own, right?
Yeah, but you have to be a non-violent offender and you have to be a non-sex offender
Right,
to be granted that.
right. The question that I believe a lot of people may ask is, how in the world does a non-violent offense carry so much time? That's a lot of time.
You know what? That was the number one question I had when I went into the federal system. So I started doing my research, and you know what I came up with?
What's that?
You know what it's all about?
What's that?
It's all about money. So
Mm.
if you realize this or not, the federal prison industries have a business that they run, which is called Unicor, which is
Right.
owned by the Justice Department. Okay, and these are the Justice Department are the same people that sentence you, the judges, the prosecutors, and I found out that the federal judges have their hand or a piece of Unicor. So to go ahead and fill the the rate of bodies needed to run these factories, it was necessary. It was like slave labor, put it that way. So looking deeper
No,
into
it is slave labor.
yeah, well, you're right. It is slave labor because you're only getting 35 cents an hour, or maybe $2 an hour, 2.50 cents an hour. So looking deeper into this, Unicor Federal Prison Industries make all types of different products for different government and state agencies. Anything from textiles to circuit boards to rocket launcher cables for the Apache helicopters to freaking mail bags to just about everything. So if you look at General Services Administration, which is a catalog, if you look at that catalog, those are all the items that Unicor makes and sells it to different government agencies. So to fill the workforce, they have to have mandatory minimums of 10 years, 20 years to keep these workforces going. Because if the sentences were shorter, the turnaround would be so quick that the production would be just, it wouldn't be great because you would have too many new guys coming in and out that weren't trained to do this type of work. And I actually was a quality control inspector. So I was one of the top paying employees of Unicor Federal Prison Industries, everything from the metal factory to textiles to, I mean, I was doing purchase orders. I mean, I seen the type of money that they spent and what they were, what was coming in. So to answer the question, there would be federal judges that would come into the prison system to inspect or look at or do a field trip day to Unicor. And I was wondering, why would federal judges be walking through Unicor? Until I started doing more research where some of the profits were going to the federal judges. So it changed all that now. It changed all that. So these are the same people that are setting the laws. These are the same people that are sentencing you. So it makes sense. Mandatory. And then if you look at the history of Unicor, supposedly it was developed to rehabilitate inmates, okay, and train them for when they're released. Of course they're going to say that. Of course they're going to say that. But who's profiting from Unicor Federal Prison Industries? The same people that are sentencing you. So when I found this all out, to answer your question, why do first-time nonviolent offenders, why are they getting so much time? That was my answer. I found it. So that's
Let
where.
me show something here. Look at this. Look at this. This must be the new logo because federal government customers, private. The reason why I'm showing this website is because so people know that there's a federal agency that also has a website, right?
Right, exactly. And if
Unicor,
you
it's
look
right
at,
there. See, unicorn.gov.
that's it.
Right here, Federal Prison Industries.
And then they make all the
Office. They make office furniture.
Yes, office.
Look at this. They make office furniture.
Textiles. We were doing copyrights also. There's a lot of inmates that were doing copyrights.
Okay, so right here. Look at this, right? Federal Prison Industries, our state, our vision. Unicor restores lives, which is what you said, by a thriving corrections program that provides marketable skills and qualification for inmates to succeed in productive citizens in our communities. How true is that? Since you were there.
I mean, honestly, it's good that they have it to train people, for the skills if they're going to use it when they get out. I mean, I was a quality control inspector. I went through the apprenticeship program. All my hours were registered with the Department of Labor. I was one of the top paying quality control inspectors in the system, as far as the highest paid that you can go. And honestly, I didn't even use any of that when I came home.
So, do all the prisons have Unicor? Because I know
No,
where I met you. I met you in Terminal Island, which is uh, a
metal
metal.
metal factory.
That's metal factory. That's
Yeah,
probably where they make everything metal,
yeah. They
right?
make lockers, tables, everything else.
Right, and because that's where I served my time. I did 65 months, but I mean I was sentenced to 65 months, but that's chump change to compared to 235 months in
Well,
prison.
still time. I mean, still time away from your family, and
Yeah,
taking away
yeah,
freedom.
yeah. So Unicor, not all prisons have them, right?
No,
Okay. So Terminal Island has. So how many prisons did you work in Unicor? Just Terminal Island or some more?
so the first Unicor I worked at was FCI Phoenix. FCI Phoenix was we made everything from rocket launcher cables for the Apache helicopter, circuit boards, that type of components, and then from there I went to Safford, Arizona, which was a textile. We made everything from gator necks for the military. We made U.S. postal bags. We made garments, for the military. And then the next one I went to, the next Unicor was actually Sheridan, Oregon. So they were actually opening up. I have opened up they were doing a solar plant. So they sent me over there, quality control inspector, to set everything up, this and that. But I was already on my way out the door, so that factory was never complete. I was actually released before, but I was still working warehouse.
Why is it that in federal prison they have all these great opportunities where men and women could do something and bring that experience over to the outside world, the free world, if you will, and continue where they learned. It seems like they always go back to prison and they have a skill, right? They learned a skill in prison. Like if I didn't have a skill, I would learn something in Unicor, get released. I would try to find something that I learned in prison so I could continue my career, continue providing for my family, make up for lost time. But it doesn't seem to happen that way. Why? Why do you think that is? The reason I'm asking is because you're also um, a speaker for a Real Talk in Las Vegas, Nevada, and you help the youth turn their life around. So, why do you think? What's your opinion on why do you think people go back to prison?
I think everybody's situation is different. I think some people get impatient, especially if you're used to making money, and you're working a regular job now that you're out of prison, and the checks and the money's coming in slowly when you're used to making that quick money, fast money. Some people get impatient. Some people, they want to take shortcuts, or some people
Mhm.
don't have the support system when they get out, and working a 9 to 5 is not enough, so they have to do other things to make ends meet. So everybody's situation is different, and when they start getting impatient, I think that's when the bad decisions start coming in. They're like, okay, well, you know what, I can dib and dab over here, and I'll make a couple dollars here, so I could pay my rent or make. And then some people are just greedy. That's what they want to do. They're just like, you know what, I just want to make money. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. So after your sentence of 235 months,
Hmm.
you get released from prison. Where do you go? Do you go to your old stomping grounds in LA, or do you go straight to Las Vegas where you live now?
No, I went to Las Vegas. I was actually living in Las Vegas when I got arrested.
Mm.
So I came back to Vegas, and when I was getting released, for some reason Vegas didn't want me back. They kept my probation officer, or my case manager actually kept saying, I keep submitting your transfer to Vegas, and somebody does not want you there. So they
Mm.
kept trying and trying and trying, and then finally I told him, well, you know what? I was living in Vegas. My family's in Vegas. When I got arrested, it just, when I got arrested in California. So that's where they automatically try to send you, where you got arrested, not where you were actually living. So it worked out where, I finally, got approved, and then I came to Vegas.
Do you want to share what your charges were that carried 200?
Mm.
That's a lot of time, Raymond. 235 months. My goodness, I can't even imagine. Do you
So
mind
I,
sharing what the charges were?
so I was charged with conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute 50 kilos of cocaine, and then possession with intent to distribute 50 kilos of cocaine. So conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute. So those are mandatory minimums of 10 years. So even the least I would have got was 10 years. So my crime actually charges that I had carried 168 months, but the prosecutor felt that I was obstructing justice, and they wanted to enhance me every which way they can. So technically, if I would have just played out and says, yeah, 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 I did it, boom, boom, I would have got 168 months. And
Mm.
that's for level one for 110 pounds of cocaine. But because I was being stubborn and a hard ass, and they said, okay, they enhanced me more time. So
Mm.
the moral of the story is, what, think things through before you try to be a hard ass.
I also did a little search on you so you could get some more information,
Mm.
and I found I found something. Maybe you could talk to us more about it. Robbing Mr. Las Vegas. Who's Mr. Las Vegas?
Mr. Las Vegas is Wayne Newton, famous singer in Las Vegas.
This one here. Robbing Mr. Las Vegas.
So that is actually a book cover of one of the other books that I'm actually working on.
Okay. So Mr. Las Vegas is Wayne Newton.
That's correct.
What does Wayne Newton have to do with your case?
Hmm. Well, the
It's
artwork.
it's in the book because uh, it's in the book. You took a picture with him, and um, you also posted the same picture on Instagram. This picture right here, okay, right, Mr. Wade Newton, okay. You posted that same picture on Instagram, and I read the comments, and the comment says several people. Does he know that you tell him? I wonder if he's still pissed at you. All kinds of comments. What's your connection with Mr. Wade Newton?
Hmm. The connection with Mr. Wayne Nunes is that I had his stolen artwork.
You
So
had
the
his you so on top of the 50 kilos of cocaine, you had stolen artwork from him.
the artwork that so yeah, the part of my case was I was trying to trade $2 million worth of stolen artwork for 110 pounds of cocaine, and the artwork allegedly belonged to Mr. Wayne Newton,
Which is Mr. Las Vegas.
Mr. Las Vegas. Yes.
And does he know it was you when you took that picture?
I'm not sure if he knew at the time. I'm not
Does he
sure.
know now?
Oh, I'm pretty sure he knows now. Yeah.
Is this something that he could invite you over for a drink at his house?
I don't think he would do something like that. I don't think he would do something. But if he did, I'm sure I would. I'm sure I would
You
accept.
know, it's in a strange way. I think I would invite somebody like you. Like if I would, let's just say hypothetically, I'm Mr. Las Vegas. I would definitely invite you over to my house for dinner just to pick your brain. Like, how did you do it? You know, forget about the why. Okay, that's besides the point.
Mm.
How? How can somebody meticulously put all these systems in place, okay, to take this shit? What, $2 million or 10?
Two.
Two. $2 million. And that cocaine, 50 kilos of cocaine, how much is that street value?
Back then, so we're talking about $1 million worth of cocaine. So there were about 20,000 back then. Twenty
A
thousand.
million. I
Yeah.
think it's more, Raymond.
Well, we're talking about wholesale.
No, street value, retail. I'm
Oh,
talking retail.
street value, that's a whole different number. But I'm talking about wholesale. They were selling for about 20,000 a piece
Yeah.
back then. This is
Mhm.
in 1995. So 100,000. So if you're talking about, if you were to break it down to grams or 8 balls, then yeah, you're talking about way more.
Yeah, because when I got arrested with 14 kilos of cocaine, and they estimated the street value was like 2.5 million.
Okay.
Wholesale a kilo when I was bringing it in, it was 10 between 8 to 10,000 in TJ. Once it was in San Diego, it was worth 14 to 16,000. When I took it to LA, it was 20 to 22,000.
Hmm.
And the further you go up in the country,
Right.
the more valuable it gets. They become, right. So
Mhm.
so you were gonna trade the 50 kilos for $2 million of worth of artwork. Did Mr. Las Vegas get his artwork back?
He did. He did get him back. When we were going through when I was going through the process of fighting my case, um, of course he denied that they were his. So
He denied it was his.
nobody reported them stolen. So I never got charged with stolen artwork. And then once I got sentenced, he went back with his attorneys and got the artwork back.
So the artwork was part of the case, but there was not a charge because he said it wasn't his.
And nobody reported them stolen.
Why do you think they did that?
That's probably the $1 million question.
Two
Everybody
million
wants to
dollar question.
know.
$2 million
$2
question.
million question.
Okay, so let's talk about your release from prison because I wanted to talk your experience in prison, the charges, because I want whoever's listening to this video, I want them to relate. Okay,
Mhm.
that there is life after prison.
Right.
Um, you're successful. I'm doing pretty good. Uh, and and so you get released from prison. You go to the halfway house, right?
Yeah.
First of all, halfway house is living hell. I got 6 months of halfway house. If I knew what the halfway house was, I would have traded
Mm.
6 months for a whole year of prison. I'd rather do a whole year of prison than do 6 months in the halfway house. Do you feel the same way?
My experience was a little bit different than that. It's funny that you said that because when I went to the halfway house in Vegas, it's right behind the Circus, and it's right. Yeah, it's kind of an area where all the strip clubs are and everything. But when I went there, the funny thing about it is my case manager. His name is William Still. Okay, the brother of boxing referee Richard Still.
Mm.
So when the first time we sat down, we started talking. I was like, "Wait a minute! so so I started showing him pictures with me and his brother, and I used to go to the fights and this and that. He's like, wow. So I'm there 15 days. He calls me back into the office. He says, Mr. Torres, the BOP don't want you here. And I'm like, what do you mean? They want you to go home. I'm like, what? So they sent me home after 15 days. So I was in home confinement. So I still had to check in. I still had to check in twice a day. It might have been 3 times a day. But when the phone rang, I had to be there or I had to be at work and answer. So I was only there 15 days, and honestly, it wasn't that bad.
So the guy tells you, just leave, right?
No, he didn't say just leave. Of course, you gotta, there's certain things you gotta do, and you gotta be compliant. But he's like, hey, so I was allowed to go to the home confinement. Yeah.
So she went to home confinement after 15 days?
After 15 days.
But you still had to report to halfway house for 6 months, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're still in the care of the BOP. It's just that you're doing time at your home now instead of being there at the.
That's what happened to me. I was released from the halfway house to my house. And I think that was the worst thing that could happen to me because it was a horrible experience. I'm never going to say never, but if I'm ever in that situation, I would not go to the halfway house. It was horrible for me. It was maybe the staff because I hear stories like yours that everything was fine at their halfway house, but mine was just horrible, horrible. So, what was your first job after you got off from prison?
Well, my first job, I had a friend that owned a glass company, and he asked me if I wanted to come on board to be a manager. So I agreed, and I was thankful. But it wasn't a big company.
Yeah.
And then, so I remember my friend, he started dating this girl that worked for him also. And she seen me on my phone one day. And she tells me, I'm going to write you up. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're going to write me up for what? For being on my phone. That's like me and one of my boys doing dirt in the street all these years. This and now he got his own company. He's doing good, this and that. And then his girl comes along and says, I'm going to write you up. I'm like, well, I says, I'll tell you what, you don't have to write me up. Tell Joe I quit because you said you were going to write me up. But I had already been offered a position at a luxury transportation company. I was just like, I was kind of just waiting it out a little bit to see if I was going to stick around with as a manager at the glass company. And so I said, you know what? I was, when I was offered a position at a transportation company, I was like, or at least an interview. I was offered an interview. I says, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and check that out. So I didn't work maybe I worked maybe a month at the glass company. I just said, nah, you know what? Let me check this out. The other company.
Because you got released in 2008.
I got released in April 5th, 2011.
Because I got released in 2008 on August 31st.
And actually, my release date was April 1st. But I'm like, nah. I was like, you know what? That's fake. Somebody's trying to pull a joke on me. And sure enough, they switched it up. They says, oh, we can't release you on April 1st because they don't. I think it was a Monday. They says they don't accept incomings on Monday. I'm like, what? Or it was a Friday or something like I don't remember what day, but whatever day it was. So you have to wait now until the 5th. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, oh. No.
And anything could happen in those 5 days.
Oh yeah.
Anything. A ride could break up, and you're stuck in there. But it's.
Yeah.
So you've been in the transportation business since 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hospitality, transportation, concierge.
Okay. So what's the difference between hospitality and concierge and all that?
Well, it all falls under the same umbrella because concierge, you're covering everything from tickets to hotel reservations to transportation to I mean, you might have a client that wants you to, go ahead and pick up their suits somewhere. You're basically there for the client's needs and any of their entertainment here in Vegas, whether it's, going to a show or going hiking or, whatever they need, the concierge services provides it for them and puts out a roadmap of, or an itinerary for them.
As a convicted felon, has it been difficult for you to service certain clients?
Mm, for the most part, it hasn't been an issue, but I was actually, there's a few high-end clients, like for instance, Hillary Clinton came to Vegas once.
Okay.
Well, she's been here many times, but when I was working for
Yeah.
a certain company, and they called the company and they pulled in all the top chauffeurs that they felt were qualified to be part of that transport. Now, I don't know if the chauffeurs were going to transport her, personally or part of the staff or security or the Secret Service or whoever. I don't know, but Secret Service usually has their own vehicles. So, so they wanted to do a background check on everybody, and I was one of the top 5 picks. And but I told them, do not submit my information because I'm not going to pass a background check. So that stopped me from driving Hillary Clinton or whoever was in her camp. Another time, from a royal family came in from London, England, and same thing. But I was already working with the advanced team before they ran my background.
Who's
So,
the advanced team?
so the
What
advanced
do they
team,
do?
what they do is they come and they go ahead and they scope out all the properties that the primary is going to visit, whether they're going to see O, whether they're going to the Win. So the advanced team scopes everything out, gets videos, checks the routes, the drop off points, the pickup points. So I'm with the advanced team already. I'm showing them all the spots where to drop out, where to pick up, and then before the primaries come, which are the main people, you got the other security team that comes in that does the background checks for all the drivers. Well, they disqualified me. One team disqualified me and says, no, this guy. But the other team came in and says, no, this guy's good. We want him. So they were going to bring me back in. But my supervisor at the company says, no, we already replaced you. So I was like, so that was a close call where I could have got back in, but I was already replaced. And so those are probably the 2 major points. But I've been on the air base with airmen from United Arab Emirates. I got clearance on there. I've been clearance. I just came off of a detail when Biden was here with Wes Edens. I wasn't on the presidential detail, but I was on the detail with Wes Edens, who was doing that speed train from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. So Biden had just gave them a grant of I think it was over $3 billion, but the whole total grant was over $8 billion. So
Yeah.
I actually was part of that transport to take Mr. Edens to that meeting. So I mean, so it really hasn't affected me in the most part. Me being an ex-felon, so I'm very thankful, very that I can continue to do the work that I do.
Right. So that's very encouraging because a lot of people that I talk to that have been in prison, they never imagined that I've been in prison. Okay, until I share my story, and I always share your story,
Hmm.
and they get motivated, they get encouraged, they get like there's light at the end of the tunnel. Like,
Right.
I'm a convicted felon, and I was able to get my real estate license in California. I was able to get the plumber's license as under a corporation, obviously. So there is a lot of opportunities to grow. Even, I mean, look at what you're doing. I mean, you're a celebrity chauffeur that you transport the people from the royal family, well, a royal family, right? And did you say that you have clients from the Emirates?
Families from there as well. Yeah.
Really? So what would your message be to people that are in our situation that they really don't believe? Because I always tell people, and exactly what you said earlier, it was like we don't blame anybody. We have to blame ourselves, and the choices that we make has a lot to do with the people that we hang around with, right? Like I've never traveled so much until I traveled with you. The only place, so the only place I haven't been to is Colombia, you know. But it's true. I mean, if you hang out with Raymond, you're gonna go to Colombia. You're gonna be successful. Okay, you want to hang out with me, you're gonna be successful because that's the mindset. So I think that the people that come out of prison they really need to change their mindset as well as they also need to change their friends.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
No, you and I have a lot of common friends, right? We have a good friend, Pete, in San Pedro. He's hustling, he's doing his thing. So obviously, they are part of the group. They're part of and Manny in Las Vegas, and Steve and Caesar and David. That we're there to lift each other up. Do you still stay in contact with people that they're not on the same page as you, in the same road, in the same lane? Do you still stay in contact with them? Do you associate with them?
You know what? I try to keep my association limited. Or I try to limit my association with people that are not lifting me up. Or
Yeah,
now, on the other hand, I try to lift people up as well. So,
right.
um, but if somebody's wasting my time, in my life, and I feel that I don't have time for
Hmm.
nonsense, and somebody that wants to be in the same position, then I'll move on, and I'll very limited conversations with them. I'll limit any time with them, and most likely I probably won't even hang out with them.
Right.
Uh,
And see, and that's the thing that I've always taught myself. I always tell myself, listen, you can't your friends become a smaller circle and it's a different mindset.
right.
You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
we love them, we respect them, but you know what? We're like in a
Right.
different life, right? So your transportation. So now you have how many? So up to this point, you were working with the transportation
Transportation
company,
company, yeah.
and now you have your own company,
Concierge service.
your own concierge service. How many vehicles do you have now?
So I personally have two vehicles, but I have a pool of probably around 250 vehicles. So I have
Mm.
subcontractors that work for me. So instead of
Okay.
having an overhead of 50 vehicles, 200 vehicles, I let the subcontractors take all that, and then I just bring them on board for every detail. So it keeps the cost down. But I have the client list, and I have the
Mm.
clients, and I have sometimes they're like Super Bowl, they're requesting 40 vehicles, one client. So
Where's the Super Bowl going to be at this year?
it's going to be in Las Vegas, Allegiant Stadium.
Okay, and celebrity chauffeur. Can you drop names of what celebrities are going to be transporting?
I can't drop names of the celebrities that I'm going to be transporting, but I can mention some names of people in the past, and of course it's in my book, and you know, um,
Which celebrity? You don't have to mention their name if you don't want to.
mhm.
But which celebrity is the most difficult to work with? That they show a good side to the public, but behind closed doors in Raymond's Escalade, are they what they say they are?
Well, I'll tell you what. We signed confidentiality agreements, so for me, if I was to give my opinion, I probably wouldn't have any clients. So all clients are treated equally. They're all VIPs, and like I said, if I'm on board and they're my account, then I gotta respect their privacy and not
I
mention
understand.
what
I
I,
respect
I
you.
what I might like or dislike. So that's just the name of the game. It's just it's the proper thing to do, not to say your type of
Okay,
clients.
and I respect that. But I need to ask you this question.
Hmm.
You have clients from all walks of life, celebrities, non-celebrities, because I know you have families, filthy rich families from Mexico that probably nobody has ever heard of, and from Asia, and from Middle East, and from London. They reach out to you. I know because you and I talk on the phone. Um, who are the best grateful when it comes to monetary to your tip? The celebrities or the non-celebrities? Who has given you the biggest tip? And can you tell us what that amount was?
Hmm. Yeah, I already know. The biggest tip I got was actually from a family from Mexico.
Really?
So a rich family from Mexico, they visit Los Angeles and Vegas from time to time. Usually they come in on a private jet, and usually they come with security. So one of the clients, or the husband, sent me a message. He says, "Hey, my wife's going to Vegas for the day. Uh, can you go ahead and take care of her transportation? Just be with her the whole day. She's going to go shopping. She's probably going to gamble a little bit." And so I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So I picked her up from a private FBO. We went to Caesar's Palace, went shopping, went to the Wynn. She wanted to gamble for a little while, so I'm there with her. She played baccarat,
Hmm.
and she ended up winning about $250,000. And so at the end of the day, she gave me this. I drove her back to the plane, and she gave me this Manila envelope, and it had a little note inside, and it says, "To the best chauffeur I've ever had, thank you." And it had $10,000 on it. And I
For
was like,
one day?
for one day, ten thousand
Wow.
dollars. And then I mean, I've had clients take me on vacations. I've had clients buy me Louis Vuitton and Hermes and a bunch of other stuff that they're very thankful, taking me to dinner. And so it's it's rewarding to know that they appreciate the work I do and me going the extra mile. And it says a lot when they reach out and they do something like that. That means that I must be
Mm,
doing something right.
mm. That is so cool. That's so cool, brother. You and I have become very good friends. We've gone on vacation several times. We get pissed off at each other in the
Mhm.
vacation. That's what friendship is, right?
It's a
And
love hate
and
relationship.
it is. I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel. I believe I'm learning more on how to interview people. But one of the things that I learned is when people hit rock bottom, they feel that there's no way out, and that's a misconception because
Right,
there is a way out. There is a way out. I mean,
right.
you've been out of prison since 2007. I mean 2011, and it hasn't been easy. Although now it looks like it's easy, right?
Mhm.
Because when I went to go to Las Vegas to get some self care from your sister's business that she does facials, she does all kinds of stuff. She has told me, she's like, I feel like Raymond never left.
Hmm.
Raymond is the same. Raymond is like he's always been Raymond, always doing things, always trying to move. And and now and it's true because it's almost like we picked up where we left off, right? Okay, we made a decision, we fell down. Now let's get back up. Like nothing changed you. Like you didn't become bitter. You didn't become angry. You didn't become um, anything that people really become. And I think a lot of that has to do. And I was telling her this. I told her I think a lot of it has to do because a lot of it has to do because we chose not to go back to that place. And that place could be the streets, could be the friends, could be anything, right? If you're a smoker and you survived cancer because of smoking, why would you go back to smoking, right? So so that's what she said. She's like, Raymond has never changed. He's always been kind, kind-hearted, um, understanding. He listens. He writes. He. It's almost like he never left. What does that make you feel?
It makes me feel, it makes me feel good, of course, hearing that from my sister. But it's funny too because like, so I got released in 2011, and it almost feels like sometimes I think like, man, that was just a glimpse in my life. It feels like a little prison sentence, but it's not, because when you're going through it, it's like, wow, you're going through it day by day, hour by hour. But looking back, it's like it just seems like a little glimpse, like. But that goes back to your faith. God talks about that He will restore the years that the locust has taken. So,
Yes.
and God has restored my life, and I'm glad that I went through that now. I'm glad that I look at things different. And going back to some people that that get out of prison that don't make it. I look at it like this: if you look all through the Bible, and I'm going to go through the Bible because that's where my faith is from. My success. My success comes from the Lord, so I know where it comes from. I recognize it. And if you look at all through the whole Bible, God didn't use people that were righteous. God didn't use people that were perfect. God used the lowly people. God used people that were. Look at Saul. Saul used to persecute Christians. Okay. Look at Joseph. Joseph was in prison also. Saul was in prison. You know. Um, and then look what happened to Joseph. He became second in command of Pharaoh's army. So Pharaoh, saving people from famines. So I look at it like this: God allowed me to go through this because this was my training ground. He allowed me to go through prison, the streets, everything, bad decisions. He didn't force me to do it. He knew I was going to do it, but out of all that, he turned it into something good. And I say that because now I work with kids, gang intervention. Well, I volunteer working with kids, gang intervention, prison drug intervention. Now, if I wouldn't have had that experience, if I wouldn't have went through all that stuff myself firsthand, then how would I know what to share?
You wouldn't.
No, I can read it from textbooks, but I personally lived it, and I can share my experience. So I'm thankful that I went through that, but I also know that God is the author and finisher of our life stories. So my passion is filmmaking and writing. One of the best directors, filmmakers, life story writers is God. Because look at some of the stuff that we go through. I mean, it's just like some of the stuff is like, wow, movie material. So going back to that, if your faith is in God and you're trusting Him, and you know that, okay, no matter what, even though you cannot see, the other side of the dark tunnel, there is light if you trust in Him. And like I said, I'm nowhere near perfect. I work on myself daily. I need to improve myself daily, but I still know that what, God is in control, and God knows what He's doing in my life. And I reach out to Him daily, saying, "Look, help me to be the man you want me to be. Help me to make the changes." I know my faults. I know when I look in the mirror, I'm like, "Okay, Ray, I know you're not supposed to be doing this." Sometimes I do it, and I know I'm not supposed to do it, but I still turn back to the author and the finisher of my life story. My life story is not finished. So
Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior.
absolutely.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So that's beautiful, and that's true. And like you said, I really believe that God will restore what the locust has taken away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So my previous comment and question is because I want to ask it again because people are going to want to know you had your gun rights, you went to prison, they were taken away, and now you're working on your gun rights because of the industry that you're in. You want to have armed security for your high end clients, right? How's that coming along?
So, Life Back Legal, thanks to you, gave me the phone number. I appreciate that. So I actually, the last time I heard, they were pulling some other records. So what they do is they go through all your records, whether it's you've been pulled over, traffic tickets, if you've been through the system, whatever. And if you haven't been convicted of any of them, they make sure that they're clear. Okay, they should not even be on your record. So that's what they're doing right now. They had to order some other documents, but I'll probably do a follow up next month. I just had to make another payment recently, but supposedly, everything's coming along good, and they're going to be preparing my pardon to the attorney, which goes to the president because mine was a federal case. So,
Right.
and I look at it like this: look, on God's time, it's going to happen. If it happens this time, then praise God. If not,
Yeah.
we'll try the next president. If not, we're going to try the next president. If not, we're going to try the
Right.
next one. So,
Right.
so either way, all the footwork's going to be done. All I would have to do is prepare for a new application or a new submission because, as long as they go through all my records and make sure everything's sealed and clear and, all the
Right.
discrepancies are not on there when they pull the record, that's what we're doing right now. So that's what we're working on right now.
No, that's good because it's good that you mentioned that because whoever's listening to this video on YouTube or any type of platform, many are going to say, "Well, just have your record expunged." It doesn't work that way with federal cases. In federal cases, even the number that they give you is yours forever. So if I get locked up 50 years from now, I'm going to get the same booking number. Okay, federal cases do not get expunged; they have to be pardoned by the president of the United States,
Yeah.
and it's a long haul. It's you're in it for the long haul to have that pardoned.
You definitely gotta and think about what you're doing too. That way you don't get in trouble hanging around the wrong people also. Because especially if you got
Yeah.
that hanging over your head that
So
you don't want to
yeah,
have no run-ins with the law.
yeah, and a lot of things that's helping you is that you are volunteering, talking to the youth in Las Vegas, but you also have been hired and been invited to do speaking arrangements to Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, what would you tell? What message would you tell people, men and women, getting released from prison, whether it's federal or state, that have no hope? They have no hope. I know they don't. I didn't have hope. I don't know about you, but when I mean hope, I'm not talking about, a pity party, like what's going to happen to me. No, it's like, how am I going to get through this? What can I do? So, what would be your message to the brothers and sisters who are being released from prison that will give up, will give them hope? I mean, 'cause-
Prayer goes up before I come home. Yeah, I'm praying
yeah,
that God's gonna open up doors. I'm like, I don't know what you're gonna do, Lord. I don't know which way you're gonna, which way I should go, but point me in the right direction and open up doors. That's the first step. Once you acknowledge that God is the one that opens up the doors, and He shuts doors too for a reason. Maybe it's a lesson learned, or maybe it's something that we need to, something that we need to experience. But definitely pray, wait on the Lord actively. Now, I'm not saying sitting at home twiddling your thumbs. Actively going out looking for a job, networking with people. Try to get your skills up to par. Appearance is everything. Believe it or not. Get
yeah,
your appearance right, dress right, learn how to speak. And half of it is being dependable. Because a lot of people lose their jobs or they don't have jobs because they're not dependable. And take pride in your work. Do work as if you're working unto the Lord. That's what the Bible says. Take
Amen.
pride in your work, and you know what? It'll come. Just be patient. Keep knocking. Keep seeking. Sooner or later it'll come. But also, if you need to take educational programs, there's the Job Connection in Vegas. Job Connection. They got training programs. They'll finance if you want to get your CDL license, or if you want to get this, or if you want to get that. There's funding for inmates that are getting out of prison. There's resources. So you just got to contact your local Job Connection and find out what's available to you, because they'll pay for it. That's
Interesting.
they have to pay for it.
Interesting. How old were you when you got released from prison?
I was I was about 42 years old when I got out.
42. My point is this. And how old are you now?
I'm 55.
55. Okay. I'm 50, and you're in better shape than me.
Mhm.
So people say, "Oh, I'm already too old to do this. I'm already too old to do this." That's a really sad mindset to have.
Right.
Because look at you. I mean, I'm not doing too bad myself. I have a couple businesses going on. You have an amazing couple businesses, and you're building a house in Pahrump. First of all, how big is the house?
The house is 1,632 square feet. It's on an acre lot, 1 acre lot.
It's an acre lot.
Mhm.
So, could you share with us how are you financing it?
I'm paying
Which bank gave you the loan to build it?
Bank of Torres gave it to me. I'm financing it myself, actually. So I've saved up my money, making enough money where I thought about going to the bank and getting finances, but I said, you know what, I got the money. I said, why don't I just finance it myself? So I'm financing it in phases.
After it's all said and done, how much did it cost you?
After it's all said and done, building the house, buying the lot, water rights, landscaping the front yard, putting a fence around it. And this is without landscaping the backyard. We still have to do the backyard. So it's going to cost me roughly around 375,000, maybe 380,000.
So $375,000 that you have that money in your account. For a lot of people that are making millions, it's probably, oh, that's nothing. But it is a lot of money when you're an ex-felon after 235 months in prison, your whole life experience, the people that you meet, your customers, celebrities, royal families, filthy rich people from Mexico that are tipping you $10,000. It's really, to me, that's an encouraging message. Like, yeah, a lot of people complete opposites. They have a college degree. I'm not knocking college. I think college is important, but it doesn't apply for everybody. But I know a lot of college people that have their careers. Da, 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 da. There's no way they have that kind of cash to build a house. Cash. Okay, they might have it available like on a credit, but that's not the same.
Yeah.
That's not the same. So, and that's the thing, and that's the reason why I wanted to interview you is to talk to you, because if just when you get released from prison, just stay in your lane, get laser focused, lock it in, and just move forward. And you could buy a lot cash, you could build a house cash. So when you get your keys, it's yours.
Oh, absolutely. But you also have to have credit too, though. You got to.
Oh no, yes, credit, yes.
When I came home, I couldn't even buy a cell phone or get a cell phone plan because I had no credit. Like, Mr. Torres, you have no credit at all. I'm like, well, can I? I couldn't even pay, so I had to go to Walmart and get one of those, prepaid whatever. But now, I've got them sending me credit cards. I got on my business, one of my business accounts, they got me sending credit cards, pre-approval, $500,000. I actually just got one today for the first time for that one. I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay. And but I pay my credit cards off every month. I make sure that everything's clear. I don't like owing money. I make sure that I have reserves in case something goes wrong. I got reserves money. I got money in an investment account. I got money in my business account. So, I try to think of, all aspects of, okay, just make sure you don't keep all the eggs in one basket, and,
Yeah.
and multiple sources of income. I try to make
Right.
money while I'm sleeping.
Do you?
Yeah, I actually
The
do.
book.
The book's one of them. So a lot of the reservations and jobs that we have. I mean, I have other people doing it, so I'm at home. With the money's dropping into the in a business account. So
Yeah.
the same thing I'm setting up with the real estate. The real estate, I have other property in Pahrump as well. This house is going to be paid off, so uh, I'm building up that as a real estate business line of credit, so I can use that to start working on other houses, and then put
Mm.
tenants in that, renting it out. Use that money to work on the next one. So I'll have all these properties rented, and they'll all be mine. I'll own them, but I'll be actually using equity in each home to build other projects, and I won't have to borrow money from the bank.
I I think you should put a course together and sell it to anybody, but particularly, see, it might not look like it, but I really want to help ex felons get back on their feet. Granted, there's a lot of people that need to go back.
Mm,
Okay, I'm sure you met those kind of people.
mm.
Like, you're so lost. There's God help you because I can't.
Well, I know
Okay.
people that never been to prison that should be in prison.
That's my point. That's my point. It's just I think the biggest flex for an ex-convict like you and I is not going back to prison.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
No. There's exceptions, and I'm sure you're gonna agree with me. You touch any of my kids,
Right,
God help you,
right,
because prison doesn't scare me. I've been there.
right.
God help you. God help you.
Oh yeah, yes. You
You
seen the
know.
movie Man on Fire?
Yes.
Okay, that'll be me, Ray on Fire.
Yeah. Yeah. I love reading the Bible.
Hmm.
You love reading the Bible.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'd love to do Bible study. So besides the Bible, because that's without a doubt that's going to be my first book.
Right.
Okay. And obviously this is your life story. Okay. And we're going to put a link on this on the description on the YouTube channel. Okay.
Hmm.
So people could buy it. Do you remember the first book you read that pushed you over the hill when you got released from prison? What book is that?
The first book that pushed me to be motivated,
Yes.
actually, it was in prison. The books that I read in prison.
Okay. Which book is that?
So, one of the books were actually the Rich Dad Poor Dad series.
Okay.
So that was by Robert
With
Kiyosaki.
Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah, yes, that was one of the books, and then The Richest Man in Babylon was another one. That was another book that I read that inspired me.
So we're gonna put those links in the description so
Mhm.
people could buy them. The Rich Dad Poor Dad, The Richest Man in Babylon, which I've read.
There's another book. It was one of the ones that Warren Buffett read. It was one of his mentor actually wrote it. I can't think of the name right now off the top of my head, but I actually have that book in my room. As we know, Warren Buffett is probably one of the best stock pickers out there. I mean, he's one of the
Well,
richest.
Warren Buffett. It's the thing about Warren Buffett is that he's very smart. He's very intelligent, but I know that he also have lost a lot of money.
Oh yeah, well,
But his secret is the long run, the long haul,
absolutely
long term. If you're gonna put money in the stock market, put it in stocks that are gonna make you money
long term. Yeah, oh
10 years.
Exactly.
A lot of people are not going to do that.
No.
But this is the thing: is that do you know who Ty Lopez is?
Ty Lopez?
Yeah,
I'm not sure who that is.
yeah. He's a good YouTuber. I listen to him. I listen to him, and I respect him because, like you said, going back to credit. When I got home from prison, my credit was shot. I would never, in my wildest dreams, ever imagine having a uh, platinum
Credit
card,
card.
American Express
Yeah.
platinum card.
Card.
So anyway, Ty Lopez, I followed him. He says, "You, you follow this program on credit cards, and I guarantee you, if you follow my step by step, you will get an American Express credit card." So
Really?
those, yeah. Now, for a lot of people listening to this, like, oh, that's BS. I got mine with no problem. Yeah, well, I had a problem. I wasn't in the position to ever get an American Express card. Okay, so step by step, I got it. Okay, now I have five American Express cards: the
You need that
Delta,
many?
the Huh?
You need that many?
It's just the status. Yeah.
Yeah. I
It's-
don't know. Yeah, because sometimes you tend to ring them up. I mean, I thought,
Sometimes,
yeah.
sometimes a lot.
Okay. So you
So
have
the,
you have a credit card for your business too, though, and a debit card, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But this is the thing. Ty Lopez says it doesn't matter how many books you have, but if you read the top five books over and over, over and over, over and over, it's gonna click. Like
Yeah.
if you read, and it's no secret. You read the Bible over and over, it's gonna click.
Okay.
You read Rich Dad Poor Dad over and over, something's gonna click.
Right.
You read The Richest Man in Babylon, everything, something's gonna click.
It's like sooner or
If you
later.
So if you read the first five books over and over, something's going to click.
Oh, absolutely.
What would your message be to the brothers and sisters who are getting released from prison? What words of encouragement would you tell them?
If you fail to have a plan, then you plan to fail. So you got to have a plan. You got to have a roadmap which way you're going. You got to set goals, daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, and and going back to my faith, also you got to pray and ask God to lead you down the right road that you need to take. Take the steps. Find out what you want to do. Find out what makes you happy. What type of work you want to do. Because when you find work that you love doing, it's not really work. You know, I never thought that I would be doing, transportation, working with security teams, and having a concierge service. But I actually enjoy what I do. I like getting up. I like wearing a suit. I like driving fancy cars. I like being around celebrities. I like being around normal people, wealthy people, all types of people. I get to meet people from all over the world, different types of businesses, everything from the jewelry industry to the entertainment industry to the real estate industry. And you know what? I have my network reaches worldwide because of that. And don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. Don't be afraid to network with people. And don't be prideful. Don't be prideful. Sometimes you got to humble yourself and take the lower job until that door opens. And I believe that, like I said, if you bring it to God, I believe that He'll open the doors and He'll lead you in the right direction.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you, brother, for having me. And like I said, the sky's the limit when you get out of prison. So don't limit yourself.